welcome everybody to the latest and greatest of our, what we hope was a dwindling amount of Zoom versions of our planning board meeting, but it seems to be ongoing, and I think we probably will for a while. So we will go ahead and open the meeting up. I need to read a statement into the record before we get started, so bear with me. As chair of the City of Concord Planning Board, due to the COVID-19 crisis and in accordance with Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there's no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the Governor's Emergency Order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing the Zoom platform for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through the Zoom platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in the meeting through clicking on the following website address. That's https://zoom.us/j/754076629, or by dialing the following phone number 929-208-6099 and entering the password 754076629. For those calling in who want to provide public testimony, dial *9 to alert the host that you would like to speak. The host will unmute you during the public portion hearing of the meeting. B, to provide public notice with the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the meeting of how to access the meeting using the Zoom platform, and instructions are provided on the City of Concord's website at www.concordnh.gov/273/planning-board. C, provide a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone has problems accessing the meeting, please call 603-568-8515 or email planning@concordnh.gov. That's planning@concordnh.gov. And D, adjourn the meeting if public is unable to access the meeting. In the event that the public is unable to access the meeting, we will adjourn the meeting and have it rescheduled at that time. Please note that all votes are taken during this meeting shall be done by a roll call vote. When each member states their presence, also please state whether there is anyone in the room with you during the meeting, which is required under the right to know law. With that, let's start the meeting and do the roll call. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Sure. Chairman Woodfin?
Here, and I'm alone in the room.
Member Hicks?
Here and alone in the room.
Member Regan?
Here and I'm alone.
Member Fox?
Here and I'm alone.
Councilor Pierce?
Here at home alone.
Member Rosenberger?
Here and alone.
Member Smithmeyer?
Here and alone.
Okay, the board will also recognize and seat Frank Kennison as an alternate to tonight's meeting. Frank, if you could just tell us that you're here and if there's anyone in the room with you.
Yeah, I am here and alone.
Okay, great. So we'll seat Frank in for Carol Foss, who's not here. So if I need to not partake in something,
Did you make a motion?
Mr. Kennison will help. So, okay, so let's go ahead and move on to our next item on the agenda, which is to approve the minutes of the October 21st meeting. Would anyone like to make any changes, or would someone like to make a motion to approve those minutes as submitted?
Move to accept.
Second.
Motion's been made by Council Pierce, seconded by Matt Hicks. All those in favor by roll call.
Chairman Woodfin?
Aye.
Member Hicks?
Aye.
Member Regan?
Aye.
Member Fox?
Yes.
Councilor Pierce?
Yes.
Member Rosenberger?
Yes.
Member Smithmeyer? Member Kennison?
Yes.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to a quick agenda overview. We have nothing being pulled off the agenda tonight, which is the first time in as long as I can remember that we haven't had at least 1 or 2 items pulled off the agenda, removed or tabled. So we will move right on into our determination of completeness component, which is section 5 of our agenda. If we could read item 5A and 5B into the agenda, Heather, is that appropriate, or do them individually?
We don't usually, but I can if you'd like me to.
If you could just give us a read through, that would be great.
Sure. TF Moran on behalf of Bradley, Whitney, Jennifer Hable and Interchange Development requesting major site plan approval and amendment to a comprehensive development plan for a 3-phase development consisting of a grocery store, liquor store, medical offices, financial services, retail stores, restaurants, and industrial uses. Also requested is a conditional use permit to allow a driveway closer than is otherwise permitted for property off of Whitney Road in the Gateway Performance District. And then there is another application, TF Moran on behalf of Bradley, Whitney, Jennifer Hable and Interchange Development requesting a major subdivision approval to create 6 condominium units for property off Whitney Road, also same property, Gateway Performance District.
Okay.
And
so-
staff has recommended that they both be determined complete, both be determined developments of regional impact, and the public hearing be set for December 16th for both.
Okay, with that eloquently reading into the record, I don't need to repeat it. Would someone like to make a motion that Heather's outlined there as far as the application has been determined to complete, that the development is a development of regional impact, and set the public hearing for December 16th?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, motion is made by Matt Hicks and seconded by David Fox. All those in favor by roll call.
Chairman Woodfin,
Aye.
Member Kennison,
Aye.
Member Hicks,
Aye.
Member Regan,
Aye.
Member Fox,
Aye.
Counselor Pierce. You're muted, I think. Counselor Pierce,
We still
you're
can't
muted
hear
for
you.
some reason. Yeah, there we go. We're not hearing you for some reason. I'm not sure why, but I'm going to go on and come back to you. Member Rosenberger,
Yes.
Member Smithmeyer,
Yes.
and let's see, now it says you're muted right now. Let's see if we can get you off it. No, I can't hear you. That's weird. Try clicking on your space bar. Let's see if I can,
Give us a thumbs up, Earl, if you're okay.
yeah.
Okay, and
You
we
know,
took,
I have
and we
some
and we
video
called
on
Frank by roll call as well, all right?
Yes.
We'll move
it.
on.
I did,
Okay.
yes.
All right, so let's move on to item 6, part 6 in our agenda, which is design review applications by consent. For those of you in the audience listening, if anyone has questions or concerns or would like to pull any of these items off the consent agenda, which are items 6A for Rite Aid requesting ADR approval, 6B for Rite Aid requesting ADR approval, 6C, which is Caring Family Dentistry, and 6D, which is Greenland's OEP Corporation. If anybody has any questions or concerns regarding that, if you could make yourself known to the host by raising your hand or hitting *9. Any member of the board wish to pull any of those items out of the consent agenda? Raise your hand. No. Anybody? No. Okay. So we have nobody pulling those out, and I don't see anybody raising their hand in the audience. So we'll go ahead and take a motion if someone would like to make it to approve the items under 6A through D under design review applications by consent with ADR recommendations. Would someone like to make a motion to approve those applications as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and roundly seconded. All those in favor by roll call?
Chairman Woodfin,
Aye.
Counselor Pierce,
Yes.
Member Fox,
Yes.
Member Rosenberger,
Yes.
Member Smithmeyer,
Yes.
Member Regan,
Aye.
Member Hicks.
Aye.
Member Kennison.
Yes.
All right, the yeses and the ayes have it. So we'll move on to item 7 in our agenda, site plan subdivisions, conditional use permit applications. If we could write item 7A into the agenda, invite that applicant to make themselves known if they're here, and we'll bring them into the meeting.
Okay, 7A is TF Bernier Incorporated on behalf of New Hampshire Good Roads Association Incorporated, requesting minor subdivision approval to create a 2-unit condominium at 261 Sheep Davis Road, Suite E in the Gateway Performance District. Staff does recommend the application be determined complete and not a development of regional impact, and the public hearing opened.
Okay, so we have a DNR component, determination of completeness component. It is not a development of regional impact. We want to take a motion and a vote on that to open the public hearing. So would someone like to make a motion to find this application complete, not a development of regional impact, and open the public hearing?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Motion's been made. Can I get a second from
Second.
somebody? Seconded. All those in favor by roll call?
Chairman Woodfin,
Aye.
Member Kennison,
Aye.
Member Hicks.
Aye.
Member Regan,
Aye.
Member Smithmeyer,
Aye.
Member Rosenberger,
Aye.
Member Fox,
Yes.
Counselor Pierce.
Aye.
Okay, so with that, we'll open the public hearing. Welcome the applicant to the table. If we could get a quick staff update on this application.
Sure. So this is the Bayberry Commons Condo Association, and we are currently looking at Unit E, which is right here. The project is to propose subdivide Unit E into 2 units. This is the proposed floor plan, and this was continued from last month because the existing condominium documents required a minimum unit size of 800 square feet. You can see that Unit E2 was just over 600. Since the continuance, the Condo Association has drafted, and I believe is in the process of recording, amended condo docs to allow for a minimum unit size of 600 square feet. The applicant has requested 3 waivers, 1 to location and 1 to vicinity plans, as they provided this earlier approved as-built plan to satisfy those requirements, and a 3rd waiver to the scale of the architectural floor plans, and staff is in support of all 3 of these waivers.
Okay, so before us, we have the waivers and the minor subdivision approval. Is there anything the applicant wants to address, or?
So I know we'd like to hear from the applicant first, and I see Tim Bernier's name up here. I'm not sure if he's wanting to speak. Somebody's raised their hand, and I'm not sure who that is because it's just a phone number. So 4148, could you let us know who you are? I've unmuted you, so I have 224-4148.
Maybe
Not sure who. Who's that?
nothing.
So I've allowed, I don't know if that's actually Tim or Jonathan, but I've allowed Tim Bernier to speak. Is that you actually there, Tim or Jonathan? You're unmuted, or I've allowed you to speak.
Oh,
We're not
yeah.
hearing you though. It looks like you are not muted, but we're not hearing you.
Oh dear.
This person's raised their hand, but they're still muted.
There they
There
go.
we go. There we go.
Yeah, all right. Can you hear me?
I can.
This is Tim. All right, this is Tim Bernier. TF
Oh, hi,
Bernier.
Tim.
Hi.
Wonderful entrance.
Technology, gotta love it.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Yeah, I really don't have a lot. There was the reason why there's a conflict. This was always intended to be a separate unit, has a separate doorway and everything. But in the original floor plans, it was listed as being 800 square feet. There was an error in the original floor plans. So when we went in and did this as-built of the unit, we discovered that error, and the unit's actually 652. So the condominium documents needed to be corrected to allow this to go forward. So, but that was the only hiccup. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I don't know if there will be any, but hang tight. So we've got before us, do we have any questions? I'm sorry, I shouldn't assume that there's no questions on that. Sam, I think we're all done with the screen. If we can get rid of that, there we go. Any member of the audience wish to address this application or have questions regarding this? Or any member of the board that has any questions or concerns? I don't see anybody there, so we will move into. If you see anybody's, Heather, let me know. But we can move into the recommendations piece on our agenda here. Can we take both of these at one shot to grant the waivers and to grant the minor subdivision approval?
No.
No. Okay. So
No.
we will. Who said no? Was that Heather or Beth? Heather. Okay. So we will.
Unclear, Mr. Chairman, on that.
Yeah.
That was your note taker who has to
Yeah.
put it into the formal record.
Okay, so the formal record will show that we'll address number 3.1 is to grant the waivers outlined in section 12.04, 12.05, and 15.23. Would somebody like to make a motion to grant those waivers as outlined?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by David Fox, seconded by Councilor Pierce. All those in favor by roll call?
Chairman Woodfin,
Aye.
Member Kennison,
Yes.
Member Hicks,
Aye.
Member Regan,
Aye.
Member Smithmeyer,
Yes.
Member Rosenberger,
Yes.
Member Fox,
Yes.
Counselor Pierce.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. So we have item 3.2, which is to grant the minor subdivision approval for the 2-unit condominium subdivision at 261 Sheep Davis Road, subject to the following conditions, and those are outlined in conditions 1 through 7. Would someone like to make a motion to grant that minor subdivision approval as outlined?
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Suzanne Smithmeyer and seconded by David Fox, I believe. We'll do a roll call vote on that. All those in favor?
Chairman Woodfin,
Aye.
Counselor Pierce,
Aye.
Member Kennison,
Aye.
Member Fox,
Yes.
Member Hicks.
Aye.
Member Rosenberger,
Aye.
Member Smithmeyer,
Aye.
Member Regan.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. So we'll move on to item, thank you, Tim, very much.
Can I interrupt real quick?
Yes,
I just want to, we have some people that I think are on here for the Whitney Road, and I just want to explain,
yeah,
just in
please.
case they're not aware,
Please.
that it was determined complete and there's no testimony taken tonight, so the action has already been taken. So if you're on the call for the Whitney Road project, that's been addressed tonight and it'll be in December.
Right. The only component that was addressed tonight was the application, meaning all the paperwork was done, everything was put in correctly. So you'll have an opportunity at next month's meeting for any public testimony, good, bad, or indifferent. And please stay tuned for that next month. Thank you, Beth. So let's move on to item 7B. If we could read that into the record.
Foxfire Property Management on behalf of 2 Pillsbury Street requesting minor subdivision approval to adjust lot lines between existing condominium units at 2 Pillsbury Street in the institutional district. Staff recommends it be determined complete, not a development of regional impact, and to open the public hearing.
Okay, so there is we'll welcome the applicant to the table if you want to get them lined up. We do have a determination of completeness and a component and not a development of regional impact. So I'd like to make a motion to find the application complete, not a development of regional impact, and open a public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor by roll call?
Chairman Woodfin,
Aye.
Member Kennison,
Aye.
Member Hicks,
Aye.
Member Regan,
Aye.
Counselor Pierce,
Aye.
Member Fox,
Yes.
Member Smithmeyer,
Aye.
Member Rosenberger. Aye.
Okay, so we'll open the public hearing. If we could get a quick staff update on this. This must be the every single condo at 2 Pillsbury Street, it seems like, has come through here one way, shape, or form in the last year or two.
Oh, you're right, Rich. So this is the 5th floor, and this is just a readjustment of lot lines. So the units in question here are 5A, 5D, and 5C. And essentially, unit 5A is taking over 5D and a portion of 5C, with this being the new layout. So 5D is dissolved into 5A, and the area of floor C is reduced.
There are no waivers on this. It's just basically a quick subdivision approval that they need, right?
That's right. Very
Okay.
straightforward.
I don't know if we have any questions from the audience. If any member of the audience has a question or concern regarding this, make yourself known.
The applicant is here I believe, if he
Okay.
would like to speak. He didn't raise his hand, but
Yeah, I don't
Aaron,
know
I
that-
have allowed you to speak if you would like to.
I don't know that
No,
we
I
need-
think Sam covered everything, and I think Richard's pretty familiar with it, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know that we'll have any questions, but if it's good to know that you're there, Aaron. Okay, any member of the board have any questions or concerns regarding this application? Or members of the audience? I don't see any hands up. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our 3.1, which is to grant the minor subdivision approval for the condominium subdivision at 2 Pillsbury Street, subject to the following precedent conditions to be fulfilled within 1 year. Those are outlined in conditions 1 through 7. Would someone like to make a motion to grant that minor subdivision approval as outlined?
Move approval. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor by roll call?
Chairman Woodfin,
Aye.
Counselor Pierce,
Aye.
Member Rosenberger,
Aye.
Member Smithmeyer,
Aye.
Member Regan,
Aye.
Member Hicks,
Aye.
Member Kennison.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries. So we'll see you back when the next time we've got to redo another one, Aaron. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to item 7C in our agenda, a rapidly evolving agenda.
Wilcox and Barton, on behalf of Duval Realty Associates, request an amendment to a previously approved major site plan for the addition of 4,900 square feet of impervious area for vehicle storage at Bank Chevrolet, which is 129 Manchester Street in the Highway Commercial District. I believe Beth can give a short update, and we do have Erin Lambert on the call if she would like to speak.
Or I can share my screen. So they're approved, I think, earlier this year for the former Sanel Auto Parts location to build outdoor vehicle storage. While during construction, they noted that it would look better if the curb cut was lined up with the existing paving at the Bank Chevrolet. So this sort of darker hatch that you can see here, they're requesting the amendment to move it back, put the curb line back there to align it there. So it's, and then they ended up, to make up for that, made this parking lot island bigger. And it's an additional 4,900 square feet of impervious area.
4,900 square feet on how many hundreds of thousands? I mean, it seems like it's enormous. It looks great, by the way. It's already paved, I think, right?
Yeah, I think it's pretty close to done.
Yeah.
They're still under their impervious area, so they're still meeting their requirements.
Okay, so from a report perspective, it doesn't look like there's anything on here other than just the amendment to the previously approved site plan, right?
Yeah, I don't know if Erin has anything else that she wants to add.
Hi, this is Erin Lambert with Wilcox and Barton. I don't have much to add. I would just reiterate what Beth said. We got in the field and it laid out better this way, just from an aesthetics perspective, inventory storage perspective, and also snow maintenance, which is so important to banks. So as Beth mentioned, we made sure that we stayed under the lot coverage. We did add the pavement on the north side that's parallel to Old Suncook Road. We increased the size of that landscape island, and we shaved about 2 feet off the parking lot and on the west end, so that we could make sure that we stayed under the 80%. We were required to add 2 more trees, and so we also provided an updated landscaping plan that meets the city's tree requirement. We provided an updated lighting plan as well, because the light poles did shift slightly towards Old Suncook Road. The nice thing is, with the new technology, the owner really has a lot of control over how those lights cast light. So it will fully cast light onto the property and not off the property. And that's about it. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Oh, I'm sorry, the last thing. We did update our drainage model to confirm that the underground infiltration galleries are sized to adequately handle the additional runoff. They're, if you remember from when the application was approved, there's basically 2 large underground infiltration galleries that are infiltrating all the stormwater. So under the previous condition, all of this water ran off into the city's municipal system. And this project has reduced the runoff into the city system tremendously. And we did confirm that they're big enough to handle the additional runoff. And that's all.
Great. Okay, any member of the audience or any member of the board have any questions regarding this application?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Okay.
Were the smaller trees counted as the required trees, Beth?
Yeah, some of them were.
So on that one side where they've got the Amur-Mackies against looks like it's like an arborvitae hedge. Is there any reason why they can't use bigger trees there? And then my other question was, I sent you an email. I was a little concerned about the crab apples. I didn't think that they were shown at the correct size.
Do we have the landscape plan?
I have the landscape plan.
Maybe we can just, yeah.
That's a lot of like Armor Mackies along that edge. When I think that they could have more shade trees because it faces west, I think.
Yeah, I had requested in my comments that they move some of them along here and put larger shade trees down here.
Yeah, and on the west side where they have, see where the Armor Mackies are?
Yeah.
That's just a lot.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really fall into that intent of trying to have mixed varieties. So I think they could work. But I don't know if I misread this, but what do you think about those, all those maples that look like they're shrubs?
The apples?
Yeah, yes, what did I say?
Maples.
Oh, sorry, crab apples. See, they're in those little bunches between the maples. It looks like a shrub planting.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah, she's talking about the little tiny circles in between.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I just,
Oh, okay.
I mean,
Those are, to answer your question, those are shrub plantings. And they were not counted towards the tree count.
Well, they're actually crab apples. The Malice
Oh,
Spring
okay.
Snow. They're actually crab apples.
Okay,
So
maybe
I
I'm not
think-
looking at the right thing.
Yeah. So I don't know if that was an error.
I will definitely talk to our landscape architect and find out, and then I can coordinate with Beth.
Yeah, and I think there should also be more shade trees on that west side.
Okay, I will definitely find out. I don't know if they've already purchased the trees. The only changes we're proposing, the approved plan had 7 of the Macchia, and there's 11 here. So I will talk to Fred Booth on the phone, but we'll talk to the landscaper tomorrow and find out what.
Yeah, you should check those crab apples because they look like they're shrubs, but they're actually a small flowering tree.
Okay. I will look into both of those.
Okay. Any other questions from the board or from the audience? No? Okay, so we'll close the public hearing and Beth will follow up with Aaron on the trees. So before us is item 3.1 to approve the amendment on the previously approved major site plan for the additional 4,900 square feet of impervious surface in the outdoor vehicle storage area at 129 Manchester Street, subject to the following precedent conditions. And those are outlined in precedent conditions 1, 2, and 3. Would someone like to make a motion to amend that previously approved site plan?
Move to amend?
Second.
Okay, that motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor by roll call?
Chairman Woodfin,
Aye.
Member Kennison,
Aye.
Member Hicks,
Aye.
Member Regan,
Aye.
Counselor Pierce,
Aye.
Member Fox,
Yes.
Member Rosenberger,
Yes.
Member Meyer.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries, and we will move on in our agenda. Thank you, Aaron. Right again to Wilcox and Barton again in 7D, if we could read that into the record.
Wilcox and Barton, on behalf of Salvation Army, request minor site plan approval for the construction of a building addition, associated site grading and drainage improvements, and a conditional use permit approval for the construction of fewer parking spaces than would be required at 227 Sheep Davis Road in the Industrial District. Staff does recommend the application be determined complete, not a development of regional impact, and to open the public hearing.
Okay, so we have a determination of completeness component. It is not a development of regional impact. Would someone like to make a motion to open the public hearing and determine the application complete?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor by roll call?
Chairman Woodfin,
Aye.
Counselor Pierce,
Aye.
Member Fox,
Yes.
Member Rosenberger,
Yes.
Member Smithmeyer,
Aye.
Member Regan,
Aye.
Member Hicks,
Aye.
and Member Kennison.
Aye.
Okay, it almost takes us longer to do the roll call vote than it does to hear some of these,
I know,
some
right?
of these applications. So let's get a quick staff update on this project if we could.
Sure. So this is the Salvation Army property up on Sheep Davis Road. So what is being proposed is a building addition, which is grade right here. This is to be a shipping and receiving addition. And the associated addition would require additional parking. However, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, so this conditional use permit was originally granted when this retail area was originally constructed. They requested to build out fewer parking spaces than was required. And by creating another addition, the question of parking comes up again. So this is essentially to reapprove the conditional use permit that was originally provided. Staff is in support of this because this being a shipping and receiving addition, it does not create any more retail floor area and would not theoretically trigger additional trips. And I believe there are a number of some questions about grading and drainage from engineering. I will leave that to them, but that is the planning update.
So everything that's on the dark gray, if we could just zoom in a little bit on that, Sam, and just leave it on
Sure.
the screen. Just leave it on the screen for a bit. So everything in the gray is new. So the building addition on the as you look from the road, kind of not Sheep Davis, but Regional Drive, I guess it is, on the top there. So it's to the right side, and then you've got all that new area that's going to be parking as well, right?
Sure, and I will, they did provide a conditional use build out. So if they were not required to provide all that parking, that would be right here. This would remain vegetated, and this would just be the building addition and then additional paving here to allow for truck movements.
So that was going to be
with the approval of the conditional use permit, this would be the full build out.
Okay, so that was going to be my question. So with the conditional use permit, we keep all the trees and all the kind of that setback and that hidden up in the corner as you're coming on it. Can you go back to the original, the other one? Without it, you see it kind of everything's cleared down to the street. Is that right?
Yes. So this would be the tree line.
Okay. And what's the applicant's looking to do? Just that right there, right?
Correct.
Okay. So that brings up, I'm sure, some questions and concerns. I do want to welcome engineering in if we could get any updates or questions kind of hammered out first here. And if the applicant's here, I think if it's Erin, she's probably still on, but if the applicant can be queued up as well, Heather. But if engineering's here and has questions, if you guys want to weigh in.
Sure, no problem. So a lot of this will come down to likely the size of the parking lot. If you look at our comments, a lot of those are geared to if they have to do the full build out, things like snow storage, a lot of the drainage questions, where is the extra runoff going to go? If you take a look at, there are a few other questions we have in the existing conditions plan, just trying to point out where the drain manholes and sewer manholes are running. And I think the other comment that caught our eye was just on the building itself. I think it's minor and we can work it out with the applicant, but it was just about where's that runoff going to go when it comes off of the side of the new building. It looks pretty flat right there right now. We know that there's an infiltration trench, but we'll just want to work out some details on where that's actually going to be heading out. And then just some ADA questions. And I think that was the majority of our comments. Nothing nothing too major beyond that.
Gary, the question on runoff that you just mentioned, is that in either scenario, it's building runoff or parking lot runoff?
It'd be the question on the runoff would be the building runoff, and that would be the case in both of them. So if you look at the grading and drainage plan, that shows, I think that's on the next page. You can see it's quite flat along the building as it comes off to the left of the page. I don't know if you have the contours there, but anyway, we just want to make sure exactly. So that's the same in both of those plans.
Okay.
We just want to make sure that that's going to be handled appropriately. We have some concerns about freezing and just making sure that works in winter weathers when things don't infiltrate maybe as well as you'd expect.
Okay. So either way, we'll have a note there that they need to work with staff regarding that one issue, right? Or the issues that you just brought up.
Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay. Questions from the board? Any member of the audience have a question or concern regarding this application? If you could just make yourself known to the host.
I don't know if Aaron or either of the other two, I do have other applicants, if they want to weigh in on their project.
Yeah, this is Erin. I'd be happy to just fill in a few details. Thank you both for that wonderful presentation. There's not a whole lot left for me to say. It is a 3,600 square foot addition. It's a shed roof, so we are intending to design that stone drip edge to fully infiltrate all the runoff. We certainly will work with Gary to ensure that the grading accounts for overflow, but the idea will be for us to take the infiltration rate of the site soils, add a factor of safety, and design that to adequately store and infiltrate all of the runoff. So we will definitely work with staff on that. As Sam mentioned, we are requesting a conditional use permit. So the application does provide all of the parking, 60 parking spaces that are required to meet the zoning for the existing building plus this addition. But working with Salvation Army, we understand that there really is enough parking there. And so in the interest of reducing the amount of impervious or adding as little impervious as is required, we request this conditional use permit to defer 15 parking spaces. We did do our drainage analysis for the full build out. So it does account for all of the runoff should the full parking lot be built, so that in the event that the use changes or that parking is needed, it could be constructed. But this plan that you're looking at right here is what is intended to be built. There'll be a new overhead door, and actually it'll be at the loading dock rather than being recessed, which makes it a lot easier for us, will be internal. So as you can see, the proposed addition is on the right side of that elevation, and the left door, there'll be two new doors. The one on the right will be at grade, a truck could just drive in, but the one on the left will be raised, and there's an internal dock, so that we didn't have to worry about having a depressed outdoor loading dock. So as you can see, this entire area will be used for shipping and receiving, and will not expand the retail portion. That is about it from the site layout. We are certainly working through some of the staff had questions about some of the existing features, and we're working with the contractor and Salvation Army to get answers to those questions. But this is what we would like to do, and certainly take advantage of the fact that we have really well draining soils up on the heights, and the intention is to infiltrate all of the runoff from these impervious surfaces on site, while at the same time accounting for if they did run into the right of way in the closed drainage system, where would they go? But we are going to try to infiltrate all of that water on site.
Great. Hey, hang on, Gary, I got you. Sam, can you go back to that picture of the build out, the front, the elevations? So I'm wondering if ADR might have weighed in on the existing garage door that's there. Is that going to stay, Aaron, next to the, I guess, the main entrance? Is that existing garage going to stay, or is it going to go?
It's my understanding that it's going to stay. I believe Chris Carley's on this call. If I'm incorrect in that statement, we did not go to ADR with this application.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, I'll speak for them because they would hate that. So they would look at it as an affront to their symmetrical design, and the one that's up and the one that's down. And is it going to be the same facade treatment as well? I think the building's white now.
That's my understanding. Yes, it would be a continuation of the existing.
So Chris, if you're available to speak, if you could just let us know if that, and not that it changes anything, but I just would like to know if that garage door is going to stay or they're going to get rid of it.
The garage door is going to stay, and the man door to its left is going to stay. That is actually an entrance to a warehouse area. It's not part of the retail entrance.
Okay.
And it's not particularly visible from Sheep Davis Road. You can see it from the side.
Yeah.
But it's not part of the main facade of the building. The new building is going to be corrugated metal. The existing building is precast concrete. The colors will be similar as close as we can get them, but the materials will not be the same.
And if I remember on the overhead, there's a setback on the new building, so looks like it's pushed back a couple of feet from the existing facade. Is that right?
It is, yes.
Okay. Okay, that was all my questions. Any other questions or concerns from the board? or members of the audience? Gary, I saw your hand go up earlier. I didn't want to miss you. So if you got another question.
Just another quick comment I forgot to bring up when we were talking. When we took a quick look at the site, the only other thing I wanted to point out was this was not with the new development, but the existing. If you look on the northern part of the site there, there's an existing stormwater treatment system for the parking lot. It flows into the top right there and follows the ditch line. It actually goes along those stone check dams, and it appears that that's supposed to be treating the water before it goes into that catch basin. Unfortunately, maybe because of snow removal or a large flood or something, it's now kind of bypassing that entire swale system and flowing straight into the catch basin. So we would just look for that to be fixed as part of this work.
Okay, Aaron, you got that?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Great. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Aaron. Any other questions, comments, concerns from staff?
I do have Rick Starkey who's raised his hand, and I've enabled you to speak.
Okay, if you could just state your name for the record.
Thanks. Yeah, my name is Rick Starkey. I'm the Major Starkey here at the Salvation Army, responsible for this property and our other properties here in Concord. Thank you for the opportunity to just present this to you guys. I think Aaron and Chris said most. I just wanted to just reiterate that, you know, the reason we're doing this project where you see that existing garage door you were talking about is our full warehouse right now, which is what we use for our baler and to store our bales until we have a semi-truck full, and also to sort any donations, which with the little bit of space that is causes a backup. And this was a dream to be able to build this extension, which would take all of our baler, our forklift, our completed bales, and put them in the new section, and allow the semi to just back up and load it very easily, which happens only about once a month. The only other truck we have is a small box truck. And then the existing warehouse, which all of that is done where that other garage door is, would then just be able to be used for sorting and you know, getting stuff ready to be sold. And then also the reason that we would keep that door is just that we would still have the public who comes to make donations of furniture and whatever else. They would still come to that door where they would be met by staff or volunteers to you know, to handle donations, so that they would not be going to the actual new warehouse, but they would be using that door. So that's one of the reasons why that would stay. And so it will help our flow a lot better. We'll be able to keep stuff, you know, open to the public more instead of having to close down for donations because we're overwhelmed. And then also help us to keep, you know, things, you know, instead of outside in the building. COVID has not been great for places like ours, but we are getting back into the swing of things just as COVID kind of hits us again. But hopefully once this project is done and COVID, you know, we have some vaccines or whatever here in the spring or the summer, it'll really make a huge difference in the way we function and the way even the building looks from the outside. So I just wanted to add that just so you kind of have a background as to why we're wanting to do this, and definitely would look for you know, your approval to do the smaller parking lot, just, you know, obviously to keep the greenery, less pavement, but also we have, as far as we're concerned, plenty of parking spaces for what we normally have at one time at any given time. So thank you.
Great. Well, that was my question, was on the preference, what you wanted to, and you answered that. So my only other question is this: for us uninformed folks, what are you bailing? Is it bailing of materials that aren't needed or stuff that you need to discard?
Yeah. So what happens is we get so much stuff, and we also help other Salvation Army units out that don't have quite the, you know, they don't have what we have, the capabilities, and they're smaller storefronts, and so we go there as well. So what happens is we put clothes out on the floor. We only leave them out there for 4 weeks so we can turn things around. Once those aren't sold after 4 weeks, those clothing get bailed, as well as other clothes if things come in and they're, you know, they're not quite sellable, or we just get an overabundance where we don't need any more at the present time, from maybe one of our other Salvation Army partners. We bale it and then we sell, by pound, overseas, where those clothings are actually used. And we have partners that we work with, and we end up doing that we need 36 bales to fill a semi truck. So we wait until we have that. And it takes up, if you see the size of that building, the new building, we will stack them 4 high. I can't read. I think it's about four high and 8 or so wide, or 8 or 9 wide.
Okay.
In the back, I think we designed it. But and then so once we get those, then we call our partners and they set it up. We also will do shoes depending on how many we have, and handbags and stuff like that. Otherwise, we could never keep up with the stuff that we get in without doing that.
Right. Okay. Well, now we know. And I'm sure everybody that's donated here on the board, none of our stuff got bailed and sent overseas.
Hey, if it's in good shape, it always goes out. And like I said, we rotate it so that prices change every 4 weeks and go down each week. And then once it's 4th week, then it will get bailed so we can put new stuff out on the floor.
Great. Well, keep up the good work. So we'll see what we can do here, and we'll move on in the project. So thank you, Mr. Starkey, for your testimony. Anybody else, Heather, have any questions or concerns?
I don't see anything now.
Okay, so let's address what we've got before us here. In our packet, you've got 4.1 is to grant the conditional use permit approval. So if I'm not mistaken, Heather, if 4.1 is granted, it'll dictate that they can do the smaller development. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to grant conditional use approval for the Article 28-711B to allow construction of fewer parking spaces than is required given the applicant's status? The applicant states that the current parking is more than sufficient for the existing parking demand of the proposed building. Addition does not increase floor area of the retail use.
So moved.
So moved.
Motion's been made. I'll take David as a second. All those in favor by roll call?
Chairman Woodfin,
Aye.
Member Kennison,
Aye.
Member Hicks,
Aye.
Member Regan,
Aye.
Member Fox,
Yes.
Counselor Pierce,
Yes.
Member Rosenberger, Member Smithmeyer,
Aye.
and Member Rosenberger.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
It's
Thought I
okay.
was muted.
Okay. So that motion carries. We'll move on to 4.2, which is to grant the minor site plan approval for the 3,600 square foot addition to the existing Salvation Army thrift store expansion of the parking area and associated drainage improvements subject to the following precedent and subsequent conditions outlined here in precedent conditions 1 through 3 and subsequent conditions 1 through 3. Also noting that drainage and certain runoff issues will be directed to the engineering department, and Aaron Lambert from the application side will deal with that as needed. So would someone like to make a motion to grant that minor site plan approval as outlined?
So moved.
Motion's been made. I'll take someone as a second, Matt as a second. All those in favor by roll call?
Member Chairman Woodfin,
Aye.
Member Hicks,
Aye.
Member Kennison,
Aye.
Member Regan,
Aye.
Member Fox,
Aye.
Counselor Pierce,
Aye.
Member Rosenberger,
Yes.
Member Smithmeyer.
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries. Thank you very much for your assistance with that plan, and good luck. Let's move on to item 7E on our agenda. If we could read that into the record.
John Roki, on behalf of Whitmore Holdings, requests major site plan approval for the expansion of a vehicular storage area, construction of a new storage yard, and a second driveway at 45 Schnell Drive in the industrial district. This was previously determined complete, and then it was postponed for a month. And we were okay with having this public hearing, but it's unclear to me, so I hope engineering weighs in on whether or not we're comfortable recommending approval at this point. So I'll let Sam give an update, and then maybe we can get an engineering update as well.
Great. What do you got, Sam?
Sure. So as Heather said, this was already determined complete. The reason why it was continued primarily because there are a number of drainage issues that I will let engineering speak to.
Hey, Sam, can I interrupt you for just a sec? So just orient me here on this, because I looked at this one earlier. Is this the vehicle storage space over on the right-hand side that's got a gated, secure area that we addressed?
That's correct. I believe it's used as an impound lot for the Concord PD.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that. I couldn't remember the project, so thank you.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So as I was saying, there are a number of drainage concerns, which I will let engineering speak to. The other piece, this is a new proposed driveway. They have the distance from this new driveway to the existing and the existing on the other lot. However, this one is currently dimensioned at 20 feet where our regs require 24 for two-way traffic. There is no vehicle path out this way, so it would not be one way. It'd be one way in, one way out. So it would require a conditional use permit to reduce down to 20 feet.
Okay, so say that again. So the traffic will be coming in on that top. Move in a little bit on that. So up on that top corner, so traffic will be coming in that way?
Correct.
And going where? All the way around to the back of the building?
No, this is just a storage yard. So not public access from what I would understand, but vehicles would come in, drop off, store items, and then, probably 3-point turn out.
Yikes. Okay.
But I would turn it over to Gary to talk about some of the drainage.
Sure. So we've had a little bit of back and forth with the engineer on this project, John Roque. This plan is a little bit different than when it first came in last month. The primary concern has been that retention pond in the back of the property. We're calling it retention pond 3. We just wanted to have some discussions about the sizing, where the emergency overflow may be directed, and where that was aimed. Originally, it was kind of aimed towards the neighbor's property, and just wanted to make sure we weren't leading to any future civil disputes. We have discussed that along with a few changes for the pond up on the front of the property. After a couple of back and forth, this is representing the latest version of the plan that we received. And just given the timing of everything, we just want to do a final run through on this latest plan from the engineer and make sure everything looks good, since this has changed a few times since the last time we saw this a month ago. But the other point was just pre-treatment on the stormwater pond. Most of them appear to be addressed from our perspective. We just want to take a final thorough look and make sure that since the there have been a few changes, that everything is as we expected about a month ago.
Okay, so from a status perspective, do you want us to table this application, or would we go ahead and look at it and evaluate it, and then if it is approved, it would only be approved on conditions that you guys have set? So I'm a little uncomfortable with that.
Now, can I jump in? I had forgot about the conditional use permit. So when this first came in, this driveway wasn't dimensioned, so we did not realize that they would need a conditional use permit. So when we originally determined the application complete, it really shouldn't have been, because a conditional use permit is required. So we can't, they don't, we really shouldn't be making any approvals for this project. They're going to need to come back with a conditional use permit and narrative and all of that other stuff next month. So I think recommending to continue it would be appropriate. I don't think you need to table it, which means they would have to renotice abutters. But I think recommending continuing.
Why don't we go ahead and do that? We won't open the public hearing. We won't take any public testimony on it.
Well, we did notice it as a public hearing, and John is here and he has his hand up, so I don't think there's anything wrong with hearing from him. But in terms of a motion, we shouldn't be doing an approval until they submit a conditional use permit.
Okay.
If you want me to, John, I think I have, oh, not yet. I have allowed you to speak, John, if you are there still.
I like the way you say that, Heather. I've allowed you to speak.
Do we need a motion to open the public, or is it a public?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what the Zoom says. The Zoom says allowed to speak.
Good point, Earl. Do we need a motion to open a public hearing, Heather, since it has been?
Nope, you just need to announce that you have opened it.
Okay, so we'll open the public hearing. Welcome Mr. Roki to the table, and if you'd like to give us any updates or information, we'll go from there.
Yeah, good evening, John Roki. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. What I'd like to do is not do the conditional use permit, and I'd like to just make that road 24 feet. If that would be acceptable. That's an easy fix. I have room to do it. I can get the drainage to work, and if I make it 24 feet, then I don't need to do anything with it. The only purpose of this little side yard is mostly for deliveries of parts delivery area. They have a door that they're putting in the side of the building, and they just needed access to drive into the side of the building. And when we're talking about storage yard, there might be just a couple things out there, but mostly it's the delivery entrance for parts. Like Gary said, we actually had a Zoom meeting, and we did some redesign work on the pond in the back. What they were worried about is drainage going towards abutting parcels and making sure that the pond was sized big enough to have the right size forebay, and make sure that we had enough room for enough storage for infiltration, and to make sure that even during the winter, it wouldn't when infiltration is down a little bit, that we would still have plenty of room. So what we did is we sized it basically so large that even during a 100-year event during the winter, when there's no infiltration, it holds the 100-year event. So we basically took part of the drainage from the existing parking lot that we had done before that was going all the way out to the street, and took it back into this detention pond. But we do also have an overflow. If there's a larger than 100-year event, it can go through an overflow and end up draining down through the existing swale out to the fronts, out to Chanel Drive. That's basically the gist of the application. The reason that they need to do this is the impound lot that they had put together when they first moved into the building. They thought it would be big enough for what they were doing, but they realized they needed a little bit more room, and they didn't really realize how they were going to use the building for parts and things like that. And the new entrance to the westerly side is something that they kind of came up with after they were in the building and occupying it. So that's the reason why we're here before you again with this project.
Okay, so Sam or Heather, does the drive aisle change from 20 to 24 feet with no conditional use permit change? From a status perspective, does that move it into something we can address, or should we not address it at all?
I would like engineering to weigh in on that, because it's unclear to me the extent to which they really need to review it a little more before we're comfortable recommending approval, or whether they're comfortable with conditional approval. It sounds like we might want to continue it and wait till next month to make sure that the drainage solution is going to work. We don't want to. We've in the past recommended conditional approval and then found that things didn't work, and that puts us in an awkward position to sort of be going back and forth with an applicant.
Okay, so we won't even have engineering weigh in. We'll kick you off the hot seat, Gary, and apologize to Mr. Roki, but we will need to continue this to next month. And get everything cleared up, I's dotted, T's crossed, get engineering to look at it and address their concerns, and then we'll go from there. So we will close the public hearing, and we need a motion, Heather, to continue this. So I'll make the motion to continue this application to the December 16th meeting. Mr. Roki will put you on the front of the agenda so we can get you in as quick as we can and out as quick as we can. Although I'm sure you appreciate staying and listening to us jabber on here, but we'll get you in and out as quick as we can. So I've made a motion to continue this application. Would somebody like to second that motion?
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor by roll call?
Chairman Woodfin?
Aye.
I will request, Sam, can you undo the sharing? It's there we go. There you all are. Member Kennison?
Aye.
Member Hicks,
Aye.
Member Regan,
Aye.
Member Fox,
Yes.
Counselor Pierce,
Aye.
Member Rosenberger,
Aye.
Member Smith-Meyer.
Aye.
Okay, so that application is continued to the December 16th meeting, and we will address it at that point. That closes us up for the public hearing section of our meeting tonight, moves us into other business. And just when you thought you guys were going to be able to hop off, we got a quick update on Concord Next discussion regarding proposed residential design standards. Can we get an update on that, Heather?
This is actually not a quick discussion. I have a presentation. Dave Hall is also here. I'm looking for some feedback from the board. There's Dave. Thank you for popping up. I'm looking for some feedback. I have a PowerPoint on a number of issues. So what part of what the code is proposing are a number of design standards for all districts. But what we're talking about here today is residential districts. So a few, and I presented this in all of the public hearing or all of the public meetings and presentations, how we were going to have these design standards. And so over the past year and a half or so in conversations with other staff, we've sort of mulled over how effective some of these might be and whether it would really be worth it to have them. And we're not all 100% in agreement with, but I think that's why I'm bringing it to you to find out what the feeling is from the board on how we want to handle these things. So the three issues that I have before you today are the window glazing. So there's a proposal in the code to require 20% window glazing on the first floor for residential districts, which means 20% of the first floor of windows and doors needs to be windows or glass or of some sort. The second issue is the location of the front entrance or front entrance feature being on the street, and whether we want to require that. The third issue is the location of garages and how we want to regulate, if we want to regulate, and in what districts that we want to make these choices to regulate. So I have a PowerPoint. I'm just going to go ahead and run through it. And after I'm done, I'm going to invite Dave to add his comments from his perspective and from the perspective of code staff. And then feel free, please write your questions down or interrupt me or whatever, just raise your hand. But I'm going to try to get through it pretty quickly. So I'm going to share my screen. Oh, here we go. And can you see it or not yet? You can't see it. Can you see it now?
Yes.
The house? Okay. So what I did last week and the week before is I went all around Concord and I took pictures of houses that I sent to our consultant and I said, which ones of these meets the 20% requirement? So in a nutshell, the concern was we don't want to ask for this if it's going to cause development that we like not to be able to occur. And Lee, our consultant, Lee Einswaller with Code Studio has said, well, you can do 15% or you can do 20%. And I'll just sort of briefly summarize Code's concern that this is going to add steps and time to the process and make contractors have to do this now. And this isn't something we do currently. So I just was curious. I went around, I took a bunch of pictures and to say to our consultant, tell me which complies and which wouldn't comply. So this here is a picture. I'm just going to go through these pictures. They would basically all comply. The nutshell is they would basically all comply. And so the question is, do we want to add this layer of review when most everything complies anyway, and the things that don't comply would comply with the 15% if we decided to go with that? So in other words, what's the point of having this regulation if everything that we're used to seeing really already does comply? The intent was to prevent unattractive buildings, new construction from being built. But we've seen that there are buildings that do comply that are still unattractive. And there are buildings that are unattractive, or there are buildings that are attractive that do not comply. So I'm kind of giving you the punchline ahead of time, but saying that essentially, is this something that we need? And is it something that's going to get us where we want to go? Is it something that's going to accomplish a goal that we want So this complies more than well enough. I'm just going to run through these pictures. This complies perfectly well with the 20% glazing. This one would comply. This one, so it's just the first floor. So this area up here wouldn't count. And if you just take this as the first floor, this is one of those ones that might be between the 15 and 20%. Again, it's perfectly fine. It's attractive. We wouldn't want them not to be able to do this. So that's basically just a few snapshots of the whole 20% glazing issue. I think that we're moving towards I think staff is in support of taking this out of the code because we're not convinced that we really need this. And maybe I'll just take a break here and on this issue and ask Dave to jump in.
That's a good idea.
Thank you. Thank you to the planning board also. So yes, obviously, as Heather said, we've been bantering this back and forth. And I started this conversation with her just with a concern that we were going to be bringing a land use ordinance into the building design phase. And there is room for that to happen. And I understand why we do want it in certain districts. But as the state has already adopted the 2015 IBC IRC, which is what we use to look at projects. There is no definitive glazing or percentage of windows required. The building industry is moving towards less windows, in all honesty, because of energy efficiency. So I was concerned that if we did have a 20% requirement, asking architects, builders, or homeowners to verify that for us was going to be an unnecessary burden to them, that we didn't really have a code requirement from the building side to want that information, but understand the aesthetic requirements that the city is trying to look for. So, you want me to touch the other points too, Heather, or do you want me to just?
Let's hold off on some of the other stuff. I would ask members of the board, do you want to talk about this or weigh in on this, or should I keep going?
So, no, I think we should. Let's take the topics as we come through them. So, when we look at these, I mean, more oversight typically I don't like. I don't like the fact that we're going to look at things and say, well, this is a beautiful aesthetic building, but it's only got 18% window coverage, so you can't do it. I don't think that's our purview. I mean, yes, it is our purview, and from a code perspective, I get all that. But from my perspective, I'm not in the architectural design business, and I'm not looking at designing the building. I'm looking at making sure that it's aesthetically pleasing, and if it's got 15% or 10% coverage of glazing on the front, or when we get to it, and I know we talked about the doors, and the different requirements. I have a fundamental. I look at it that our piece of it doesn't really need to get that granular on saying you've got to have X to move forward. So my 2 cents. If somebody else like to weigh in, feel free.
Well, I have a comment. I was kind of surprised that this was part of the purview of this new initiative, because then we're kind of controlling like the design intent, and that could expand into like all these other things. And I think, Heather, your comment was like, it still could be an unattractive house, even if it had the 20%. And I don't think that's something we can really control or should control, because then before you know, it'll be like the paint colors and the roof treatments and, on and on and on. And, and I think that for the most part, people, I've noticed, builders don't put windows in because they cost more money. Most windows now are energy efficient, but I think for the most part, people like the light, the natural light in their buildings. So I don't see that ever going away. So I guess I would support the staff's position that this not be included as something that we would have control
I'd
over.
also like to weigh in a little bit, and that is that, then you get into the and I don't mean to say can of worms, but you get into, if you really want to design great buildings, and there's so many more considerations like orientation. You don't put glass on the north side of a house. Does that make it the south side of the house, which is the street side, ugly? I don't know. But I think Richard, you're right. You know, we get into a can of worms that just starts to, you know, proliferate. And so I don't, you know, when you say, you know, windows, well, what the way the windows go in a building is really determined by one, it should be by its orientation, you know, for solar gain. But does that make the other side of the house that you actually can see ugly? I don't know. You know, it's just, it gets crazy. You know, at some point, you need to step back.
Can I jump in? There's a picture that I forgot to add on Bow Street in the south end. One of the houses there that I had a picture of.
That's
it doesn't
the one
have
I was
many.
gonna mention.
Yeah, it doesn't have. You want to go ahead, Rich? It doesn't have many.
I don't have it if you've got maps or whatever, but there's a house on Bow Street that overlooks the Bow Brook in the back. So when you come onto the street, it's up behind it's up behind Rollins Park. And when you come upon it on the street, it's a little teeny house, single story. There's floor to ceiling glass in the back of the house that overlooks the pond, overlooks the brook. It's stunning inside. It looks like an average house on the outside, but on the inside, it's not stunning, but it's a beautiful little house with floor to ceiling, glass that overlooks the brook and has southern exposure for light. So, we get into a slippery slope here when we start to look at it and say, this salt box design is beautiful, but it's facing the second street on your, if you've got two streets that come side by side and you happen to orient the house against the wrong way, whatever. I don't want to be making those decisions. I don't think that's a decision that the planning board needs to be making, just again, in my own humble opinion. But you're gonna, and exactly what David said, you're gonna orient the house, or you're gonna change to put south exposure windows in and design the house the way you want to, as opposed to the way some arbitrary 15 or 18 or 20% glazing number says.
I agree with you, Richard.
I do too. This is Teresa. I think this is a real slippery slope, and I totally agree with you, Mr. Chair and David.
Okay, so let's move on to the next.
Richard, could I just
go ahead.
one question?
Sorry, yeah.
I want to approach it from a slightly different way, which is enforcement. If you were to have this in the ordinance, who is going to have the function of enforcing it for every single house that is built to determine whether it meets a 20% glazing requirement?
I'm going to recommend David Hall go out Saturday mornings and measure windows to do it.
It's creating an unreasonable burden on somebody.
Absolutely, no question.
But it would only apply to new building permits.
Yeah.
So it's not something that we would go back and look at existing. It would only, so when a building permit came in, it would be reviewed at that point.
And there'd be an education process to the architects, designers, and builders, and they would get used to this. But again, I think it would be I don't want to call it a hardship, but it would certainly be an extra step.
So let's talk about the front door piece of it.
Yeah, sure. So, I'm hesitant to go further with all of the conversations about the slippery slope, and I hope this next piece isn't considered a part of that slippery slope, because it is true that some communities regulate really intensively architectural features in terms of the style of architecture, the roof lines, the colors, the materials. That is something that some communities choose to regulate, usually in certain districts. This next piece is really more about site layout, and it's intended to apply to really the higher density neighborhoods, the more downtown neighborhoods, not really out in the RO district or in the less dense parts of the community, which right now I would call the current RM and RO districts. So those are less concerned with this issue. It's really more of a concern with the downtown urban neighborhoods, basically everything that you consider sort of close in. And that is the location of the front door. So in the current proposal, there's a requirement that the door be on the front facade. So in other words, wherever your primary street is, and by primary, I don't mean the higher order street, I mean the street that you are considering the front of your house. So in other words, if you were on a corner, either of those streets could be your primary street. But if you are in the middle of a block or in the middle of a street, then the street is the front. And so this requirement requires that you have a door, basically a door on the front. And that's for aesthetic purposes, for neighborhood continuity, all of those streetscape design, and also to prevent additions or changes to existing architecture from sort of destroying the character of an existing building or putting a building up there that really is not attractive and doesn't really fit with the neighborhood. And if you can't tell by my extraordinarily long disclaimer, I'm in support of this regulation. So here's an example of a house that basically has no door on the front. Their door is over here. This is their driveway. And then there's a front door over here. I think the parking is back there. I think there's a garage or something back there. I'm not sure what's going on here. And then there's this back door, but this is essentially the street. And this is what is fronting on the street.
So let me ask a question and go back to that. So if we adopted a ordinance that said you as an architect and a designer and a homeowner, you need to build your new home with a front door on it, and the homeowner said, okay, I'm going to put a front door right in the middle of this garage, obviously on the end here. They're going to put it at grade. They're going to put a front door in that doesn't operate or is always going to be locked or is a faux front door. I mean, again, if I really didn't want a door on the side of my build, what I'd consider the side of the building, even though it faces what we call the front in air quotes of the building, I would put a door right in between those two windows. I'd make it, very pretty and have an arch around it, and I'd trim it out the way it's supposed to be, but it wouldn't be a door. It's not going to be at grade. I'm looking down the road as we have people that say, look, I'm on a tight lot. I don't want this to be the design of the house. I want to do X, Y, or Z, and to get around it, I'm going to do this. And that's what I don't want to see.
Yeah. So I don't think there's any situation where I would support somebody saying they want to put their garage right there in the front by the street. So you got to sort of parse out, are you talking about new construction or are you talking about existing buildings? Because for the most part, and I've driven around for like 2 weeks now looking at buildings in Concord, that situation does not exist. This is not the garage. This is part of, and I understand you're saying, for example, but there's really no example that I could think of that I came across where the garage was right there. If it's in a different district, kind of further out, that might be the case. But in the downtown neighborhoods, I don't think that we would want to support somebody saying, hey, I want to put a side-facing garage or even a front-facing garage being the first thing that you see, on the urban street. Somebody was trying to jump in there.
I have to say, two of my favorite houses on Ridge Road have the front doors on the side of the house. And they are lovely houses that I've always thought were wonderful. I just don't see we can go there. I mean, I think.
Can you tell me what the addresses are so I can take a look if that would even
I
apply?
have no idea the addresses. One was Judge Manius's house, and it is the block. They're both on the block between Forest and Franklin.
Yeah. So middle of the street on the left-hand side, Teresa. Right
One's
on,
on the
side.
left and one's on the right. And if I walk around and if I think hard enough, I may think of, I know, there's a fabulous one on Rockland. That's a side, it's a side front door.
Well,
I just think we're taking away architecture.
Here's the thing. Can you tell me where they are?
It's on Rockland. It's at the end of the block.
So here's Rockland.
So I just think, I forget the fact that I think I've got these three houses that I think are fabulous. I just don't think, I think this is unfriendly.
Well, I think that it's helpful to see what you're talking about, because in a lot of cases where people have said, oh, this is really lovely, the thing that they're talking about wouldn't actually even apply. Like, they're not understanding that.
I don't even think that's the point, Heather. I just think this is, to me, if I want to come into Concord and build a house and I hire, I don't know, Chris Parley or whoever, and I'm told, well, you can't have a front door. You have to have a door on the front of the street for your front door, and you have to have a certain percentage of glazed windows, And I just want to go, why do I want to build in this city? Because it's too restrictive.
Well, I guess,
can I add something? I mean, my house here is the prime example of what you're arguing about. You know, the side of my house, I have two sides. Pennacook Street is my garage side, and that's where my mail gets delivered. But it's a garage, which faces Pennacook Street. On the other side of the street, because I'm on a corner, is Auburn Street. I have a circular driveway on Auburn Street, but the point of land really and the front door faces Little Pond Road.
Oh, you're right. I've forgotten about you. You're absolutely
I'm the prime example of this argument. You know, my front door doesn't face, I mean, it faces the triangle. My lot is a triangular lot. So I have Auburn Street on the left side with the circular driveway. And there's a side door off the deck and porch and the screened-in porch on that side. The front door doesn't face either streets. It really faces up the hill to Little Pond Road.
where, do you see what I have up right here?
Well, I see a lot of white. I don't see any. Yeah.
Is this your house right here?
I'm right in that. No, I'm right in this little space where Auburn Street. I have Auburn Street on the left side of my house. You've been here, Heather.
Yeah, I know. I think it's right here.
It's right in this little notch that faces Little Pond Road. That's really where my front door faces.
Hey, Teresa, is the house on Rockland Street yellow and green? It's got
That's
yellow.
my house. There's my
Yellow
house.
and green. The house in Rockland is
Where
on
the
the
heck's
right
your door,
side.
David?
My door is up facing up the hill.
Can I
There's
just?
that's Pennacook side. Okay.
Let me ask you this, David. If you were to build your house new, take the
Yeah.
same house and reorient it, would you?
I would face Auburn Street because it puts about $50,000 worth of value on my.
Yeah, that's right.
Whatever. I guess
There's my circular driveway.
Yeah.
Which I've always liked.
So can I just jump in here for a second? And I'm curious about, wait, Sam is sending me something. Because the goal is not to micromanage stuff like this.
Right.
You know, and so maybe we're talking about, you know, R7.5, R5, and R2.5, because those are the districts that are more in the high density part of town. And if we just go back to, like, we're talking about stuff like this, where it's small lots, you know, and there's just no door. Well, actually, this is a different case, but there's just no door facing the street. This is actually a nice example. This is the only nice example that I could find where there's no door on the front. And actually, I didn't find this one. This one's sort of debatable whether you would want to be across from this house with no door. There's a lot of these in town, but these have what we would call an entrance feature. So these would satisfy the requirement. And we're really just talking about these rectangular lots in the urban neighborhoods. And we're sort of trying to prevent, you know, stuff like, where is it?
You know, Heather, more I think about it, there's some houses on Spring Street, South Spring Street, that I think that gives the neighborhoods character. I mean, frankly, I don't know that you want to have it your urban district or your whatever you want to call it. It's all got to be a cookie cutter. When you really start walking the streets of Concord, which I do a lot with my friends, there's some really interesting blocks and houses that are very diverse, and some of them have doors on the side, some of them have it on the front, some of, you know, it's just, I think it adds to the diversity.
A couple of doors up from you on Auburn Street. There's a couple of houses that don't have front doors on Auburn Street. They're on the side.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, there's a yellow and green one right after the stop sign, just before you get to Brady there, the turn onto Columbus Ave on the left. So as you're going up Auburn Street, right after the stop sign there, the second house in on the left is a cute little funny looking house with 50%, 80% glazing on the front of the house, but no front door. And
now that you say that, if I think about it, there is at least one on my block on Auburn, And maybe
Yeah.
two. But the
Two doors up from, on the other side of Karen's house. Has no
What?
front door.
Who does?
On the other side of Karen's house, there's no front door.
Well, Ed doesn't have a front door, Ed Barnwell, nor does the guy next to him. They're both on the
And,
side.
and behind you over on Ridge Road, there's a couple of houses don't have
Oh, they
front.
definitely a couple there. I mean, I think when I look at my block of Auburn Street and my block of Ridge Road, there are, now that I think about it, we have at least four. And then I go
Oh,
down
yeah.
to Rockland and you've got
Oh, yeah.
one at least fabulous. And I think they just give it character.
Right, and you
Right.
get back to
We're all talking
Richard's
about our-
point. If you
Let's
get back
hang
to
on.
Richard's point, I don't think we can dictate this.
I don't either.
Earl, you've had your hand up patiently. Let's have.
Sorry, Earl.
I'm listening to you, Earl. Go.
Thank you.
Yep.
None of the existing houses that we're speaking of are affected by any of these changes. Is that correct?
Right. Yep.
So if you want to create or maintain the character of a particular neighborhood, and that the lots that are available in the urban district are few and far between, why wouldn't we want to be able to put a front door toward the street or a street or something like that? I mean, if it were up to me, I'd require every house to have a front porch. But I know we're not going to go there.
Earl, when you think of it, and I think of some of the houses we're talking about now, they're on small lots. And if it turns out for the flow of the house and the inhabitants, you have to put a door on the side, but I don't think that's really, I mean, how can we dictate at this point what an architect needs to do for the homeowner to get the space they want on a lot of a certain size in the urban district?
If I may, Teresa, we do that all the time.
Well, I know we do. I just happen to think we're becoming cookie cutters and not letting people, frankly, be creative.
I agree.
Okay.
I mean, I look at
I'm not
places,
sure it's
Earl,
as
like
big a problem as we
Georgetown.
think it is.
Holy cow. I mean, you got some fabulous houses there.
Wait, but all the places that you're talking about are in some of the wealthiest parts of town that have lots of large lots and they have lovely architecture. I mean, the concern is that in some of the smaller lots on the higher density neighborhoods, that you're going to have developers or absentee people who are going to start snapping up properties, and they're not going to be concerned with. It's not about what you're talking about aesthetics in some of those higher density neighborhoods. It's about, how many units can I put in here, and if I can build the side of my house, which is like really the butt end of my house, up against the street and maximize, whatever units, because the big difference between this code and our existing code is that we're giving people more rights to do units. And so some of these protections are intended to prevent destruction of historic homes, really, because if we're incentivizing units and people can just do some of the things that have happened recently with taking off front porches and building the straight edge of the house right up to the street, that there's nothing to prevent that. And those choices aren't necessarily being made for, artistic reasons. And it's
Heather,
really
can I add something? And when you look at some of the lots, like the 60 by 100 or 60 by 120 foot lots that are on Auburn Street, if those were vacant lots and you didn't have a building on them, and you were trying to build a house that had to have a front door that faced the street, it would absolutely constrict the architectural design, because now you have to have a house that is 45 feet wide and 80 feet deep, and that's ridiculous, as opposed to running the driveway into the front door, and the house could then be 100 by 45, which is more reasonable. To me, it's more reasonable to have a house where you enter the front door and you have more house on either side of the front door than behind the front door, if you understand what I'm trying to say.
I do think some of the cutest houses on Spring Street have a side door too.
Yeah, a lot of them do.
I have a side door, but
Let's move on, Heather, if we can.
Well,
did you have garages,
frankly,
garage doors as well?
I think maybe we can come back to this because I'm really looking to the board for direction on this. And I think that, you know, I'm not trying to sway one way or the other. My goal is to help people understand why it's there and how it's functioning and to understand that, you know, we may be able to tool it so that it applies to districts that we would be concerned about, like high density districts. I mean, I think that it would be helpful maybe to take a role of the board and say, you know, how many people really think that this is just unnecessary and how many people think that we should go in this direction. And then when I come back to you with an actual draft, or when we take it to council, I can say, look, the board felt this way, you know, or was split on this issue or whatever.
And that's fine.
You know,
And
the majority felt that this was inappropriate.
so that's fine. We can do that. We can take a roll and just, you know, get our hands up and say who's in favor, who's not. But I will say, as with anything, and we can all be dissuaded or moved into, you know, hey, this really would be a good idea for this reason. So all I've seen is the visuals of, hey, that's a cute house and I don't want to restrict that. I need to hear more or see more, you know, concrete bullet points of the reason we're going to do this is to you know, to protect houses in these districts from being developed this way, or the reason it would benefit us is for this reason, this reason, this reason, this reason. If you can give us some.
This house right here is a prime example. Like, if more houses were built this way, and this is what you were looking at on the street, because this was the cheapest thing to do, is that okay? Are we okay, go for it?
No, it's not.
I think you're right though, Rich. I think some bullet points as to what the purpose is, what the problem is now, what problem we're trying to solve, and how this solves it and what it does.
Right,
It's
and I think
really hard to be ethereal.
It's not something. Yeah, it's not something I think we can do just quickly here, Heather. I think it's probably a couple of sheets or a page from you that says, here's the pros, here's the cons. I mean, here, you know, we want to do it for design aesthetics and we want to do it for this reason, you know, but maybe get some feedback from, you know, the architectural community as well and say, you know, if we put this in place, what do you think the negatives are? And I just don't know. I need more than anecdotal pictures to say we either want to do it or don't want to do it. I'm not sure why. Matt, I saw your hand. You gotta.
That's me. Oh, I have my hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Matt.
Go ahead. Oh, all right, I'll go quickly. Just a quick question for Heather. If we're going to get that list, is it front door visible from the address street, or is it, you know, is it parallel? You know, is it running with it? I mean, I don't quite understand. Like, so this house, we can't really see a door. So it's a great picture. It's a great picture of a bad. This is a great bad example.
This is a really good bad example.
Right. But some of the others you showed, you can see the front door from the street. It's just on the side of the house.
How about the ones
instance,
on Allison Street, Heather? Those 2 or 3
that's like
duplexes
right
on Allison Street.
So these would satisfy the requirement because they have, in the ordinance it says an entrance feature. So here's the entrance feature. Even though the door is on the side of the house, there's like a porch type thing that comes up to the street, and these would satisfy, even though, like, I mean, this is directly across the street from my house. And if a new duplex were to be built here, I would prefer that it be side by side duplex. I mean, I think that's more attractive, but this is fine. I mean, this would satisfy the requirement. Like this house, who knows how this was originally, if this is an addition, but in accordance with what the proposed code says, is this should have had this entrance feature fronting here on this door. I don't know, maybe there's another door on the side, the driveway's over there. So this is the type of thing where if this were constructed new, you would want there to be a door, you know, coming out this way. So for instance, this one, you can see the door. This wouldn't satisfy the requirement because it would have to be on this facade. Some of the I didn't add a whole lot of stuff in here because I didn't want to overwhelm you.
Would that one satisfy the requirement? Whoops, go back.
No, because it's not on that front facade. But I took a lot of pictures out because I thought these would be sufficient to make the case. But
click on that blue one again up there, right up one.
This
right
one,
there,
yeah.
Yeah. So that would, and that to me, that's a very appealing design. I think that's a,
Yeah,
it's obviously
that's a
been
really
built-
nice one.
It's been built on 3 or 4 times. It looks like they've had additions added and different, different things added since it was a little teeny house. But
Yeah.
I have no problem with that at all. And I,
Of course, if this was in a higher density neighborhood, it wouldn't necessarily work. You wouldn't be able to do this because there wouldn't be enough space. Like this, I think is in the I think this is R10 or R75. It's one of the larger lot neighborhoods. And that's really the difference. When it's a large lot, there's space to make it work. But when it's a small lot, you just end up with like.
But even if this was a
type of thing.
tight, go back to that blue one again. Even if that was a tight lot, if the lot line was right up on the other side of the driveway now, and you had a 1-car driveway that went up next to the side of the building, to me it still works. It's still a feasible design. And
That's not a tight lot. What you just described is still a large lot. I mean, that's a 1/4 acre lot.
Rich, may I jump in even though I'm not really here?
Certainly, we'll recognize Councilor Champlin and take some
Thanks.
public testimony.
I'll bet you dollars to donuts that house originally had a front door that faced the street, and it had a porch. And then they winterized the porch. Yep. When they winterized the porch, they moved the entrance to the side of the house.
Yep.
And then they put the 1 or 2 additions on the back. There are a lot of houses like that repurposed. I think that the salient point that I hear Heather saying, and I'm just going to say this, and then I'm going to get out of this discussion, is that not everyone has not everyone even has an architect who's working on these things. And not every architect is a really good architect. Like a lot of the architects who worked on Ridge Road or Exceptional and Auburn Street. We should never underestimate the ability of people to express poor taste in public ways.
Amen.
Heather?
Thank you, Byron. Go ahead, Suzanne. Sorry.
Well, I guess I'm trying to figure out, and maybe the consultant, it's David, can kind of answer this is, I mean, if you're going to go to this place, then you would also say, well, we don't want this kind of siding, or we don't want, dormers. I just don't, I don't think that this is really a problem in Concord or in a lot of communities. And I guess if maybe the consultant can give an example of this is where the problem has occurred, and this is why this kind of response is warranted.
Yeah, that's
because
a good point.
It will prevent. I just think I never thought that this process was going to get down to this detail of the architectural aesthetics.
So that I don't disagree with that. David Hall, who's on the call, is code enforcement for the city. So David's not the right person to ask that question.
David Hall.
Lee,
Okay.
yeah.
Where's the consultant?
So that's Lee, and he's not on the call. And
okay. Sorry, David.
Your point's well taken, though. If we're getting a recommendation of 20% glazing on the front of the building and a recommendation of making sure that there's a front door, why are we getting that recommendation? And maybe we push this back, Heather, and say, hey, look, my board wasn't all that in favor of it. I need some ammunition to go back to them and say, this is the right decision because of the following reasons. Boom, boom,
Yeah,
boom,
well,
boom,
I
boom,
think I have that answer for you right now. I know exactly why it's in there. And that's because part of the purpose of this code was to make it easier for people to do more units. If they wanted to add a duplex, or if they wanted to add, part of their, if they wanted to convert from a large single family home to, multi-unit home, it was intended to, and this is what I got a lot of positive feedback from council and the board and the public, that people wanted to have more flexibility with being able to do conversions and more units in their homes. And it's targeted towards the homeowner, people who own their homes and they want to do more units or a duplex or a unit for a family member. That is the whole intent of the redistricting in the residential districts. And what that does, though, is that incentivizes development in a way that you have not seen yet. So, folks saying, we don't need this here, this is not a problem here, you know, you may get somebody who decides, hey, it's cheaper for me to tear this whole house down and maximize what I want to do here. And you know, there's folks that are going to do that and put stuff out there that they don't live in, and that they're not necessarily trying to, you know, it's not a property owner that's trying to, you know, increase their income or and stay in their home. There's people just tearing stuff down and, you know, literally doing destroying the historic fabric of a neighborhood because they don't have there's nothing that's causing them to have to maintain that. That's why it's there.
So this gives us
to counteract the incentivizing or the flexibility to do more units.
Well, how does that stop people from, I think a bit greater concern is the tear down mentality. Because, and I would be more interested in addressing how that can be dealt with more than like the architectural treatments.
Well, we can't prevent people from tearing stuff down. We have no ability to do that, but we can disincentivize it by making it not necessarily economically viable or worth their while to do that.
Well, I don't know that keeps them from tearing it down, quite honestly, but.
So let me ask a question. So, and I think I saw Matt's hand go up, but I'll ask this question first. And if Matt, you have another question, but so do we have any mechanisms in place to allow us to not approve a project that we've just don't like? If somebody came in and had
these aren't even going to trigger you at all. That's the
question. Okay, so that's the question. So these are building permits, and we're not going to see these at all, right?
No.
Okay.
Are we going to get so granular that we're saying to people, you can't put your utilities on the front of a building when you're redoing stuff, or you can't put garages in front of your front door? I mean, you've got a lot in the urban area now where you can't even see the beautiful houses if you got garages in the front door.
Yeah, well, I think telephone wires and garages are two very different scales of things. Utilities are, that's prohibitively expensive.
Utilities, but yeah, I guess, when we're sitting here discussing, to me, whether we have a front door on the front or the side, if we're going to mandate you have to have a front door on the front, then it seems to me it's pretty inexpensive for people to, when they're rehabbing these places and making them into multiple units, to put garages in the front yard where you can't now see the house or the front door, or putting utilities on the front of the building. So it just seems to me it just keeps getting more slippery as we go.
Well, that's already in the code, and that was our last point of conversation. Do we want to transition into that?
Yeah, please.
I have a question, please.
Yep.
If I could ask, Heather, could you go back to your pictures of your homes, number 7?
How'd you know what number it was?
Because I've been waiting to ask the question for 20 minutes.
But where'd you see the number?
Over on the left.
Oh, I can't see that well.
Now, if we were to pass this ordinance, and let's say behind that porch was the front door, and to Councillor Champlin's point, would we let the applicant build that front porch because it's now hiding the front door?
Well, that speaks to what the triggers are. So if the trigger is a building addition, we could write it that way, that they would not be able to build that porch that way. Yes, so that they could, because the door is no longer, fronting on the street. We could also write it to say that it only applies to new construction.
And the door's not
brand new construction from the foundation up.
Right.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
The door's not fronting to the street because you can't get to it, right? Although there probably is a door inside there because
it's probably like right there.
And I guess my point is, did the applicant build that front porch, and the front door or a street-facing entrance was facing? You could see it before they built the screened-in porch.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right, thank you.
So with regard to the garages, so right now, I think it's a matter of, well, it may be not just a matter of this, but in my mind, it's a matter of what districts do we want to talk about this in. So in some of the more suburban districts, these types of, I put these first because I thought they were really great examples of what we want to encourage. In both of these cases, the garages are either off to the side or they're in line with the house. They're not in front of the house, what in planning we call with affection snout houses. There's a real attempt to discourage garages in front of houses for streetscape and aesthetic purposes. So both of these are great examples of the types of treatments that we would support and encourage, and that the proposed code would allow. This is another great example of something that the proposed code would allow. This is something that I don't think, well, it depends again on what districts we want to talk about. If we want to say in the R10 or R20 or beyond, we don't care if your garage is in front like that. I mean, right now it's written in the code that this would not be allowed. Or do we want to say, if you're in the 7.5 or 5 or 2.5, in other words, if you're closer into town, we don't want this to happen. We don't want you to put your garage in front of the building when you're close into town like that.
Is
So
that
something
house
like
in
this.
Florida?
What?
Is that house in Florida?
No, these are all in Concord.
I'm kidding. They all do that in Florida.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They do, and that's kind of an example of like when you're at a planning conference, like, don't do this. They put up all those neighborhoods with the garages in front, and it's not lovely. But do we want to allow something like this where the front of your house is literally 3 garages? Now, I want to have a caveat here, and I'm going to jump to John Torlian's project. In the code, we've written it, the proposed code, we've written it so that if your development fronts on a green, then that green is considered the front. So all of these houses, even though there's no door on the street, would be considered compliant because their front doors are facing the green. So in this example, because I'm not sure where this, I don't remember what was around this. If this were, for instance, a green and all the houses were sort of fronting on it, then that would be fine. But if it's just like, nope, this is just the front of the house and it's garages. Do we think that's okay? Are we okay with that in certain districts, in any districts? I have some other pictures that I didn't have in this. Oh, where are they? You can. I mean, that's the issue with the garages. I didn't come up with too many examples of. Honestly, I didn't see really any examples of garages in front of houses in the downtown district. It wasn't built that way, and I would think we would want to keep it that way. If somebody were to subdivide or do an infill, I don't think we'd want to see something like this. In the downtown neighborhood, it really just wouldn't be consistent. So for me, the question is, do we want to allow this type of thing, even though this is a lovely house, do we want to allow this type of thing anywhere? Or do we want to, how do we feel about it? I have a lot of other.
I'm a little less offended by this this is a little more palatable, I guess, to me than the glazing one or even the front door one. So I'm indifferent, but I would love to hear what others think.
I have some more pictures. Can you see this?
Yeah.
I took a lot of these out because I didn't think that I would need them, but something like this would be allowed, right? This is all in the new development up off of God, somebody help me out. Alice Drive, that neighborhood.
Sandwood Crossing,
yeah. This one
it's Ward
is like
2, by the way.
This one like almost complies, but I guess I would say that it does, but to the extent that this is like, it more, I can't tell from the picture, more in front of the house, we would want it to be sort of pushed back. There's just a lot of examples where did we go? So this is one that we would not want to encourage in new suburban development with the way that the garage is pushed out like that. But there are so many examples of the way of it being done in a really successful way. Where are they? It looks like I am in the wrong folder right now. But yeah, go ahead if you want to.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, could someone argue that that's actually 3 front doors to their home?
No.
Okay.
Are you
Sure you
joking?
could. No, sure you
Well,
could argue
sort of,
that.
but I mean, so many people enter through their entrances, their garage door, right?
Yeah, but it would be a garage.
Okay.
It would be considered a garage.
Okay.
But here again, there's some really nice examples of it being done in a really lovely and successful way. If we want to regulate out in these, like this is an R20. All these pictures in this folder, this is an R20 zone, and these are all successful, or not, I don't want to say successful, but they're examples of what we would want to encourage, what the current code allows, and what we want to encourage. This one I think is a great example. This one has no garage. That one's, so there's a lot of, this was really interesting. This is all one structure. I do not know how what's going on here, but this is all one structure. And, there's 3 garages, but it's not like in front of the house. Again, another really nice example. Like the application of the cars is off to the side. So this is the front street. Actually, the street goes all along here. And then they have their driveway comes up around like that. Another good example. So in any case, these are all examples of, Dave, one of yours was really great. I can't seem to find it, but anyway, I don't know. I hear people talking about the slippery slope, but these are basically the only 3 features that we're talking about. We're talking about the location of the garage, the location of the front door, and the glazing. And like I said, I think staff supports removing the glazing. I'm not so convinced removing the front door is a good idea, but definitely will just do what the board tells me. And if folks have feedback on the garage, Rich, you said it, you gave a little bit, but.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody else has any feedback on the garage. Matt?
I wanted to make a comment about meeting design standards at some point, because I'm thinking about having a downtown where we have a sea of just walls, right? And we don't have front doors. It's not, and thinking back to our traditional neighborhood design presentation from years ago and how nice that looked, right? And to have downtowns that are more hospitable, which if you're facing a wall, it isn't really, it isn't welcoming. And so when we are talking about dense areas, I just don't think that improves the aesthetic quality of our city. So I tend to agree with Heather on this. And it definitely runs up against sort of my free will. Like if I own the property, I want to be able to do what I want with it. But we're also talking about the city. And we're not, so do we want to live across from a wall, right? And I'm not so sure. I think talking about Auburn Street, or Mountain Road or places like that, I think it's apples and oranges at that point, because you're going to have people like I hired an architect for my addition, right? We have, it's just a different ball game. And I think that's what Byron was saying. And I agree with that. So I do think we need design standards, or we're going to get another Sewell's Falls development, which is the worst, I think, around that we've approved in a very long time. So I definitely think we need to stick with some standards. So thank you, Heather, for raising the issues. Appreciate it.
Okay. Anybody else want to weigh in?
I just think, Richard, the beginning of this conversation, you made a couple of really good points, and part of that would be to get a very good sense of how the board feels about it on an individual basis, and that's would be my feeling, that I would like to weigh in a little bit and on the subject that you had started this conversation with, which I don't remember quite what it was.
And again, so Heather, from a board's perspective, I don't want to set us up to do something that we're always getting requests for a change to it, or somebody wants to come in a variance. If they want to come in and say, I want a variance to this particular rule on the garages because here's my design, isn't it beautiful? I mean, to correct me if I'm wrong, but we're trying to get away from that. I think we want to get those variances out of the modicum of what's going on a per plan basis, we want as few variances as possible, right?
Right.
Right. So and I'll weigh in. I mean, I think the glazing one is probably something I wouldn't support. The front door one, I could have my mind changed to say I could support that one, and I think I probably could do the same with the garage door. I will say that in general, I don't like the fact that we'd be weighing in on the designs of the buildings, because we don't do that for a lot of other things, and we don't do that for commercial buildings. And
we do.
Yeah, well, again, but not to say where the door is going to go. I mean, we do have some. We do. Okay.
Yes.
I stand corrected. So I don't know. It's just a like I said right from the get-go, that slippery slope of where do we stop and where does the design piece pick up. So.
Mr. Chairman, since you're doing wrap-ups, may I jump in one more time, and then I
Certainly.
promise I won't say anything?
Yeah.
Heather, could you put back up I think it's 159 Rumford Street?
Sure. If I can find it, I will.
I think it was in the folder. Because to my mind, I agree. I don't think we want to over-regulate. Far be it from me to want to do that. However, this is an example on my street of what used to be a cute little house, a cute little single-family unit. And the guy who owns this property, who's a very pleasant guy, and I think well-meaning, started to reno, and then found that he had problems, so he demoed, and then he built this. And this, I don't know that this ever came to planning board. Maybe it did. I can't recall whether it came to us or not. But there is a front door over here. Well, you can't see my arrow. There is a front door over there to the left. But this really, we must be able to do something to guide people so that we don't end up with something as massive. And I mean, this is in a neighborhood which mostly has two-story buildings, and this thing looms above the street. There must be, I guess my feeling is there must be some way for us to, through some degree of regulation, to guide people. Because, I mean, this is a one-off, but imagine a whole street of cute little houses that suddenly turns into a whole street of this. And, and this is to the point of, even though there's a door in the front, this really is, to Earl's point, I think to Matt's point, look, if you're across the street from this, you're looking at a wall. So I hope that planning and the board can find some middle ground or some creative way to try to encourage the best angels of our natures relative to how these properties are developed. Because I think Heather's point is well taken. You're not always going to have a local property owner. I mean, we're seeing more and more people owning properties in Concord who don't even live in New Hampshire, don't even live in New England. When you don't live in a community, hopefully you have some respect for the community, but there's no that's not a guarantee. So those are my final thoughts.
Great, thank you, Brian. What else? Anybody else want to weigh in? Okay.
Not so many people have. I can understand if the issue of the door, people want more information. I'm looking for a little bit more direction. Could you do some kind of role to just have ask the three questions? Glazing, door, garage, and see what generally people.
1, 2, and 3. So what's the board's flavor? So if we started with Earl.
I'm gonna stop sharing, and then so I can see everybody.
Sure.
And can
I was not swayed by the glazing discussion because I think it's being met pretty closely now. So I think that bumps up against a little over-regulation. The entrance, I'm in agreement with Matt. I think it's very important not to be looking at a wall. The Rumford Street example, we talked about that a while back, and I think we need to make the urban part of the city welcoming. And again, I won't push my front porch idea, but I would love to see that. As for the garage
That was
doors,
originally in there. It was originally in there.
yeah, well, whatever. I grew up in a neighborhood of full front porches and neighbors doing what they want, and I want to be out on the front porch and hear the chickens in the neighbor's next door yard.
Amen.
But as for the garage doors, I need more information. I'm not sure on that yet.
How about Frank? You want to weigh in, Frank?
Sure. I am somewhat of the same mind. The glazing part doesn't cause me a great deal of concern because I think there just are inherent design factors that move people well within compliance of that. So I'm not terribly concerned about the impact of that. I was very struck by Matt's comment about, particularly in very dense parts of the city, that you want a front door, you don't want to look at walls, and you want to have some sense of identity and sense of community. So that I feel much stronger about. And in terms of the garage doors, I just think that notion of the garage hiding the house is just plain ugly. So I can't get behind it anyway.
Okay.
And I can't even begin to try to stretch my head to think of it as a regulatory issue. I just think it's downright ugly.
All right. Hey, David Fox.
I'm with you, Richard, on that, and I don't think that the glazing on the front of the house, I think that gets outside of our box. And I only cite a couple of buildings on Columbus Avenue on that little side street that runs back in there that has beautiful views of the city, but they're on the back side. And for all intents and purposes, there's no windows on the front side of those houses. So anyway, Bishopgate Road off of Columbus, that's a really nice little place to go around. Am I concerned about where the front door appears? No, I'm not. And I'm because I can cite too many buildings in the up here where I live in Auburn Street and Ridge Road that and I think there's some lot constraints. I don't like houses that are narrow and deep. That's me. As far as where the garage is located, I'm not going to cast any one way or the other. I think that is determined by the architectural competence.
Okay, Matt.
All right, so the glazing, I don't really have a problem with that like everybody else. The front door, I think when we're talking about, Heather, correct me if I'm wrong, we're talking about not Auburn Street, right? We're talking about pretty much more densely populated areas. So for that, I think there need to be front doors. I mean, I don't use my front door in my house facing Mountain Road, but if I took it out, my house would look very strange, even though it's oriented towards the shared driveway. So I'm not taking it out because it would look odd. And I hate garages in the front of houses. So if it were up to me, all of them would be behind the houses, so we don't have to look at cars parked in the front of houses or garage doors.
Okay, John.
Well, let's start off with, I agree with sort of the sentiment of not over-regulating and not imposing design standards unless there's a clear benefit to it, or at least a good potential of a clear benefit. And I didn't understand the glazing. I didn't see that. It didn't meet the objective. Seemed to be a lot of issues in just implementing that, and so that was pretty clear. The front doors in the dense urban areas, I was open to. I thought it made some sense because we are changing the density. We're trying to encourage people down there, and you're a little concerned about what the intended consequences of doing that are, and you don't want to lose the character of the neighborhoods. could I use a little more information to be convinced? But I'm leaning towards that's something worth considering. And then the garage is just like everybody else. I don't see that being in the front of the house is making any sense at all.
Okay, Teresa?
Oh, yeah, I'll go backwards. I'm like everybody else. I don't like garages on the front. As far as the door on the front, I think everybody knows where I stand. I like flexibility with that, even in the densely populated areas. And the glazing, it just seems overregulation to me.
Okay, Suzanne?
I have always thought that when the garages are forward on the lot, that it dominates the site and not the house. So I've never thought that architecturally or functionally that the garage should be the prominent feature when you are on a lot. I think I agree with Teresa insofar as that I don't think we can over-regulate aesthetics. I'm ambivalent about whether or not it's really that important that the door is not in the front, because I think there are ways of making that work. And sometimes functionally it has to be on the side. So I guess I would like to mull over some ideas, but to also investigate like why other communities have done this. And I guess this probably came not just from you, Heather, but from the consultant to think of, how this ties into the land use planning piece of it as well.
Okay, so that gives you some feedback, Heather. And again, I think the comparisons to the place is important. What they're going to do in Hampton, and the super dense, as many rentals as you can get and as high up as you can do it. And, everybody wants an ocean view is a little different than Allison Street on Concord. So I mean, I think it's relative to the space and to the area, and then how does it affect redesign? How does it affect additions and things like that? If you put an addition on the house, does it change? So again, a little more information, but I think that gives you a little feedback on the board level.
So would you mind if I ask Byron to do sort of the 3-part weigh-in as well, since he's a council member?
Yeah, surely.
So far from Byron, he gave some good comments, but could you go through the, number 1, 2, 3, yes, no, maybes?
Sure, I'll even uncloak. Here we go. Number 1, the glazing. I don't think there's sufficient proof to show that it's going to, create the effect that we want. Heather and I had this conversation other times. So glazing, no. Front door in compact urban neighborhoods, yes. In fact, I would love to see Heather put together some examples of successes and failures in other communities where perhaps they have form-based code, or where they've moved in this direction, to see like what's the upside, what's the downside. What does it look like when it works? What does it look like when people do the things that our planning staff is concerned about? Not having front doors, not having welcoming streets. And relative to the garages, I agree with, I think, the majority of people. Garages should not be thrust forward onto the fronting street of a residence. I just think that looks awful. And I forget whether it was Frank or John who said that makes it's the garage that dominates, and the house is subsidiary to this massive garage. So that's where I fall there. Does that help?
Great, does help. Thank you.
Yeah, I think so. I'm just going to wrap up real quickly, because I know it's getting late, and I really, really, really appreciate all of your attention to this and your feedback and your thought. So I'm getting glazing is out. Mm-hmm. Garages are pretty much in. Most people, I'm not sure if anyone didn't support the garages. Front doors, we want more information. I've got, what have other communities done? What happened in what Byron just said, ask Lee for some examples of when it did or didn't work with the front doors. Like, what happens if you don't do this? What could happen if you don't do this?
In like communities, That was
What?
my point. In like communities, I don't want to see it for Hampton or someplace that,
Yeah,
or
it's a challenge.
Charlestown or something like that. I want to see a, a
Yeah.
50,000 person, city like Concord.
Yeah, it's a challenge because New England is its own animal, and there aren't a ton of form-based codes in New England yet. And a lot of the places where there are tons of them are in other communities that have different markets, but I'll see what I can do.
And frankly, Rich, that's what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking even about New England. I'm just thinking, I mean, I agree.
Yeah, anywhere.
Communities, but yeah, anywhere. Iowa.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, not Iowa. No. Nothing good comes out of Iowa. That's
There
on the
you go.
record. That's on the record.
Rich, you are live. Let me just
Here,
remind you.
Richard, I agree.
It's on the record.
No, that's Rhode Island. Nothing good comes out of Rhode Island.
At least say New Jersey, Rich. Okay.
No,
I clearly need to end this meeting. We clearly need. No, the last point I wanted to make, which I thought was a really good one, and I'm gonna go for this, is to talk to some local architects about this and just have a heart-to-heart with them about what they think about this. And then we were hoping to come to you with the draft next month, like recommendation to council for approval. So all this needs to happen really quickly. I didn't necessarily build in a whole bunch of conversations to happen over this issue. So I'm hoping I can bring back a draft next month and give you what you want and sort of wrap it up so that we're not, prolonging this. I do have one more question, if you don't mind, which is a little bit off base, but one of the projects tonight brought it up for me. Currently, in our current code, architectural design review is required for major site plans and a number of other triggers, like building permits and performance districts. And currently, when somebody comes for a change, so for instance, tonight, it was the building in the industrial district, and it was small enough that it didn't trigger a major site plan. It was a minor site plan, but we didn't send it to ADR. And technically we should have sent it to ADR because it was an amendment to a previously approved ADR approval when it was approved as a major site plan. So my question to you is, it makes sense from a logical perspective. Originally there was an ADR approval. This is different. But if that had been an existing building, that wouldn't. And it's my understanding the intent of the ordinance isn't necessarily to, in perpetuity, require architectural design review for every change in a building that went through major site plan approval at one point. So in the new code, we could potentially change this or fix it so that ADR is only triggered when the proposed change is actually something that would trigger ADR. Or we can keep it the way it is, which is if you've ever received a major site plan approval in perpetuity, if you want to come back and make changes to that building, you need to go back through ADR again for an amendment to your original ADR approval.
That just seems silly to me. And again, unless you're changing the physical design of the building or what we want architectural design review to weigh in on isn't the change from a status or the change downstream. But if a major site plan is the only thing that's triggering it, any change after that, they have to come back through ADR. Is that right?
That's how it's been interpreted in the code. Yes. So technically that should have gone to ADR. I forgot about it. So I was like, oh, geez, they actually got a previous approval.
Which one was it? Which one?
The Salvation Army.
Okay, so the Salvation Army put their addition on the side, and it should have gone through it. Well, I asked that question. I
know, that's what made me think of it. I was like, oh, shoot, they should have. I think when it originally came through, I didn't realize that there was a previous approval on file. So and then by the time I realized that, I wasn't thinking of ADR. But is that one that we think they should have come back through the ADR?
In that case, yeah, because you're changing the physical nature of the outside of the building. So I don't particularly care if it wasn't triggered from a major site plan, but if you're making a physical change to the envelope of the building, or if you're adding to the building, if you're changing it in that nature, architectural design I think needs to get a shake on it.
Yeah, but if that had been an existing building, it wouldn't have triggered it under our current code.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. I don't know what the answer is to that. It seems a little silly, but I think ADR should have weighed in on that change of the physical structure of the building for the Salvation Army. But that's my thought. And we're losing everybody else, so we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out another month. Okay, so let's move on to the very last item on our agenda, which is any other business that needs to come before the board. Anything else that we need to be made aware of? If not, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
That would be me.
To adjourn.
We got a motion and a second, roundly seconded. We'll do all those in favor by putting your hand up or saying aye if you're on the phone. Teresa or Suzanne, if you can give us an aye.
Oh, aye.
Aye. All right. So we will adjourn, and thank you very much, everybody. And we'll see you in December. Hard to believe, everybody. Thanks for the great job tonight, and we'll
Have a
see
great
you.
Thanksgiving.
Yes, you too.
Thank you, Heather. Be safe, everyone.
Thank you.